All right, so we got a really special guest today, somebody that's near and dear to my heart. We've kind of become best friends. I don't know, it's something I never really expected. And, I always say this to everybody. I'm around Tony and Sara often, but Sara is really the star of the relationship. So I thought it would be very fitting to kind of interview her to kind of showcase, all these star qualities that I see every single day. So welcome to the show, Sara.
Honored. Oh my gosh. From my big cousin, Omid. Thank you. I'm going to tell my dad you said all of that. My dad is Omid's uncle, so he'll appreciate those sweet comments.
Yeah, for sure.
But thank you guys so much for having me on. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of you two for starting this podcast. So truly honored that I am one of the first guests. I'm annoyed that I wasn't the first, but it's okay. I'm still rooting for you guys.
Sara, let me tell you, just to give the listeners just a behind the scenes, when Sara came to the desk with the energy that she brings, my lights start flickering over here because that's just the energy. And if you're not listening to this episode, I decided for you to pull over. I strongly suggest that you be late for work. Do whatever you need to do because this is going to be the interview that you do not want to miss. But before we jump into anything, Sara, if you could, take a minute or two and just give us and the listeners just a little background on who you are.
Cool. My name is Sara Robinson. I am a real estate investor, a wife, a stepmom, a hard worker, and a funny biatch, That is who I am in a nutshell.
You know what?
Am I allowed to cuss on this podcast or no?
Absolutely.
That's my favorite part is the biatch, favorite biatch, 100%. So
yeah, I'm Tony and I. So Tony, for those of you guys that are listening, is my husband and business partner. So the reason I am asked to come speak on this podcast is because we have started a short-term rental business together and found freedom through time and work and money by doing this journey together. So, but yeah, I am Tony's plus one, Tony's business partner, Tony's wife. We are on this journey to finding our freedom together as husband and wife.
Sara, that's absolutely amazing. I think that's where we can 100% start because, it's so impressive when I watch, you and Tony and the Robinsons and the social media on how much fun you're having building an empire and living a dream. But truth be told is it's a struggle, okay, to get, your partner, your wife, or get your husband, on board. Now, let's help out some people out here. Did you have a dream to be in real estate? Was this something you wanted to do? That's one. And if not, how did this bond come together so you guys can have, the YouTube channel, the following that you have is absolutely amazing. So if you could share with the listeners kind of that journey, that'd be great.
Yeah, so sweet. Thank you, Lenny. But no, this was not my vision for myself or my dream, my goals, my interests, not even 1% of where I pictured myself going in life. I think it is 100% right up Tony's alley. He's a visionary. He's good with numbers. He likes building systems. He was always interested in becoming an entrepreneur and starting his own real estate business. So this was totally, sorry, I was so close to the mic. That was totally Tony's vision. I had a separate vision of also being an entrepreneur and not being tied to a corporate job and working until I had to retire. That is where I think both of our similarities in our visions and goals aligned, is that we didn't want to be trapped by the corporate workplace and I feel like society makes you feel like in high school, you need to study, you need to go to college, you need to pick a degree, you need to get a job and stay at that job and build and work your way up there. And I 1,000% felt that, but I knew in my heart, I'm not going to be that person. I didn't want to be that person, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm not that person. And then here comes my husband, this overachiever, workaholic guy with dreams like freaking, what's the Tesla guy? What's his name? Elon Musk, you know? And Tony starts indulging himself into learning all things real estate. So I can't remember what year it was, maybe like 2017 to 2019. He was, oh my God, so annoying. Driving wherever we drove, he would be forcing us to turn off like Tyga and Too Short and play real estate podcasts. I was like, oh my God, here he goes again. And he would try to force me to listen to this. And I would end up, girl, falling asleep every time. I was like, it just wasn't for me. You know, I was like, I don't know what the heck he's doing, whatever, but I was supportive. At the end of the day, I was like, girl, I'm rooting for you, but I have zero interest in doing anything real estate related. So that's when he found Omid, actually. And they both bonded over following David Green and having the similar interest of building a real estate portfolio. And then Tony and Omid were actually the ones to start investing in long-term rentals. Again, at that point, I was like, girl, what the hell? You bought a house in Louisiana? Like, why are you doing that? Like, can we go on vacation with that money? You know, I just did not get it. And especially, I feel like Omid, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. There was like so many issues with those properties. So I was like, what is the point of all of this?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I want to interrupt you real quickly before you continue your story. So, you know, what's really funny is, so the long-term rental, we're not making money. Somebody steals our air conditioning while we're at a conference. We're not cash flowing. It's in a flood zone. It's like all these mistakes, you know, rookie investors make. And, but what was interesting is I remember getting a text message from Sarah's brother, and she's like, she would like Snapchat him talking to me and Alex Sabio and be like, oh, great. Again, like they're always talking about real estate, and then like sending it to like, I don't know, her like little tribe, and like showing how annoyed she was. So it was kind of funny how like, you know, that was her initial you know, reaction to just real estate. And but I guess like Sarah, like Tony talks about kind of like the spectrum of like getting your partner involved. And like, so first you get like, there's a stage of getting somebody's like initial support, but they don't want to be involved. And so how do you jump from like being the supportive person that's like not like, hey, do your thing. That's all you, boo. Right. And then into, hey, like starting to kind of get involved in it. Like walk us through like somebody like you know, I feel like there's a lot of couples out there who are maybe get stuck in that stage and never transition. So how do you transition into like the next stage of actually like being involved?
Yeah. So like that story I just mentioned, I was that person for Tony. I was the supportive, like patting him on the back, giving him a thumbs up, but I had zero interest in getting involved. And then that transition for me was when he decided to shift into short-term rentals. And the reason I had a shift in mindset was because I knew short-term rentals. We've stayed at Airbnbs. We travel a lot. I love staying, you know, at vacation homes. Actually, funny story, I actually hate staying at Airbnbs. That's a secret. I would much rather stay at a hotel. But anyways, yeah. So I just knew, like, before he was thinking about multifamily and syndication, all these annoying real estate words, I was like, what? But when he said short-term rentals and that's Airbnbs, I got it. I was like, oh my God, that's something I feel like I would like. And then he started to show me the numbers, and girl, that's when my eyes lit up. I was like, what? How much are we going to make? Or Alex, you know, he's the one who showed us his journey. And that's what really perked me up, you know, getting $200 from that long-term rental in Louisiana and splitting it halfway with Omid. We're walking with $50, $100. That did not interest me at all. But then shifting over to short-term rentals, and I was like, just naturally, yeah, because it was an Airbnb and I stayed at them. I know what it's about. That naturally piqued my interest. But I have to say, for those of you listening, if you want to get your spouse on board and not sure what to do, I always say this to everybody, is the first thing I would recommend is take them to in-person events, whether that's conferences, that's meetups. That truly, you guys, changed my perspective on being interested and involved in this business. It wasn't the books. I'm not a reader. I'm not a podcaster. Like none of that. As much as Tony tried to drown me into that to get me in it, I was not interested. I was not having it. But I'm a people person. I love meeting people. I love, communicating. So submerging myself into in-person events and meeting people that look like me, and that were having so much success in the short-term rental industry, that was like, oh my God, they don't look that much smarter than me. Like, I feel like I could figure it out, So if you have a partner that you are wanting to get on board, I would highly, highly recommend you take them to a in-person event, whether that's a free real estate meetup, a paid conference. I know a lot of the conferences are kind of pricey, but I promise you they are well worth it. The return is insane, even if it's just for your own personal benefit, but highly recommend in-person events. That was the shift for me personally to bring me on board.
No, I mean, listen, that's very, 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 very great information. And I just want to stay there for a little bit, if you don't mind. So, you're saying, hey, one of the things you can do is bring people to places to do, this networking and learn more. Just like you said, meet individuals that's, the same like you. So how important it is, and I kind of want you to go into depth a little bit if you can, that networking is just in general, just being at like a conference, being at a meetup, and, building that confidence that others, can do it and I can do it too. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Like, seriously, I can't emphasize this enough, you guys. Like, I'm not joking when I say going to conferences and networking truly changed my life. I would not be as involved in this real estate game with Tony. We're now hosting events. We now have a coaching program. I would not be doing this if I didn't start attending events and networking. And the reason it was so powerful for me was because, like you just said, Lenny, I am now talking to people that are doing what we want to do and getting inspired by them. So it's different than hearing it on, reading it. You just feel like, oh, that author, obviously they did it. They're rich. I just feel like it's so much more relatable and feels doable when you're talking to someone in real life. Or even if you're meeting another person that also doesn't have any experience in short-term rentals, just having that connection and hyping each other up. Like, we got this, girl. We can do this together. Like, let's exchange phone numbers. We're going to be each other's real estate buddies, and let's keep rooting for each other along the way. I cannot emphasize seriously, like, anybody I ever meet, they're like, Sarah, how did you get on board? That's my first bit of advice, is to bring them to events for the purpose of networking, to get inspired, to learn, to exchange phone numbers. The networking opportunities, you just you can't even fathom like what can unfold from the people you meet at events.
So it's interesting. Like, Lenny and I, we met, and Tony, we all met in like a conference. So like the relationship I have with
adorable.
Lenny kind of, we literally sat right next to each other. Lenny came in this like baby blue suit or something, and we did some selfies.
Looking like, what's his name? Steve Harvey.
I was like, who is this guy from Philly, right? So, it's and I think we were able to kind of have this natural relationship that we've been able to extend beyond the conference. But I would say, yes, so we've all been kind of outgoing to a degree and comfortable, but I've also heard a lot of people say, hey, I'm an introvert. I'm a little bit scared. So like, what do you say to somebody that's maybe not as comfortable in that sort of setting or has never been to one? Like, how can you kind of break the ice, or what sort of tips would you give somebody that is kind of interested, like they hear you and they're inspired, but then inside they're like, oh wait, but I'm scared. Like, what do you tell them?
Totally. And that's normal. Even for an extrovert like myself, it is so uncomfortable. I always say that too. It's just like awkward, especially when you feel like the dumbest person in the room. Like, you feel like you're assuming everybody else has properties. I'm going to this event. I have zero and I don't know much about real estate, but I want to learn. I feel like the idiot in the room, and how am I going to go up to people and network? My first bit of advice, and I'm not even joking, is get alcohol. Alcohol will help you. I promise you. Don't get drunk, But, I just feel like that takes the edge off, makes it feel more casual, and you take the stress off of yourself. And I would say just don't be so hard on yourself. Like, making friends as an adult versus a child is like 10 times harder, and we all feel it. It's not just you. So just how uncomfortable you are coming up to people, literally the person you're wanting to go up to is probably feeling a bit of that as well. So I would say don't be so hard on yourself. Just give it a go. If that first event you went to, you barely talked to anybody, it's okay. That's great. That's a great thing that you got yourself to even go, so keep going and building that rhythm of pushing yourself out of your element, and keep going to this event until you talk to 2 people the next time, 3 people, and start getting more comfortable with yourself in these uncomfortable environments. And before you know it, you're going to have besties all over these conferences.
That's awesome. I gotta love it. The alcohol, right?
Omid gets drunk at every event we have, so you know about that, Omid.
Hey, I didn't say it.
You're speaking my language. You're speaking my love language right now.
That's great. That's great. But hey, listen. You're here. You're for the ride, and you're 100% active. But there are some things that happens, right? Because I'm following you guys. I'm seeing that you're buying houses, and you got people that's already there. You buying houses, and you go into the door. You can't open it up because someone's already living in there. Just issues and problems that you're having. With everything that you got going on. So, like, what motivates you to continue to say, hey, let's buy another one versus sell everything? You know what I mean? So yeah. What's that motivation that keeps you going?
Honestly, it's Tony. He is a workaholic. He's addicted to this game, but that's rubbed off on me. I think when we first started, like I said, I wasn't really interested, and I went from not being really interested to now, okay, I'm interested in Airbnbs. I thought this was just going to be like a cool thing we have going on. I had no idea he had a vision of growing this into a multi-million-dollar business. But I think I'm remaining fired up because I've absorbed that vision that he's had all this time, and now it's become my vision too. And I think I just never believed in myself the way Tony's. That man, you guys don't know him like I know him. I swear, if he doesn't become the president of the United States one day, I will be shocked. But anyways, he's just always had that confidence in himself, like a little kid when they're like, I want to be a snowman when I grow up. That kind of confidence is what Tony J has. Wouldn't you agree, Omid?
What do you call that? Big D energy? Is that what it is?
Yes. Yes,
no, but
big dick energy. Yeah.
It's I introduced him by saying, like, pretty much whatever he puts his mind to, he accomplishes, and then some.
1,000%.
And like, it's like, you want to be the bodybuilder? Oh, I'm gonna be a bodybuilder and be a champion. No big deal. I'll just like start doing that and whatever it is. But I would say that 100%.
So I think that energy, his energy, just working with him every day. We've never been business partners. We always had separate lives at work, and obviously we've always been a couple, but I think just being glued by the hip as husband, wife, and business partners, usually when you're next to someone for that long, you guys kind of adapt and become versions of each other. And I feel like his belief in himself and his drive has transpired into my body, soul, and mind. And I'm so grateful and thankful for that, because if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have that fire, Lenny, that you just said, like, buy the next one and the next one and the next one. It's because of my husband, and I'm so grateful for that.
No, yeah. So like what I'm hearing is, I think it's, just really like having that support system. So it's so let's say somebody's starting off, how do you build that support system? So let's say, how do I find this Tony J? Where do I go? I want to get started. And, like, I have a little bit of doubt. I'm interested, but I don't know what to do. How do you find that, I guess?
again, this goes back to the events and networking. That is what really changed my life. So not only did I have Tony when I was like, oh my God, I know nothing. I'm clueless. I can't do this. I had Tony in my ear saying, babe, yes, you can. You got this. You can do this with me. But he's my husband. I wasn't listening to him. I was ignoring him. I was like, you know what you're talking about. But then I would go to events and I would meet people, and like, those people, I can name like Ashley, his co-host. I'll never forget the conversation she and I had when we first met her in person. We had, I think, like 3 properties at that point, and I kept saying, Tony's properties or Tony's business. I kept referencing like it was his, and she stopped me in my tracks and was like, Sarah, why do you keep saying that? This is your business too. These are your properties. Like, why do you keep saying that? And I've had a few of those Ashley moments in my life over the last 2-3 years at in-person events with other people I've met, just having conversations. And I take those away with me thinking like, what the heck? Like, I can do this. I got this, you know? So I think they've just naturally become my support system. Like Omid, you know, it's just like you build this family of supporters, that are rooting for you, there for you when you make mistakes, to help answer stuff. And I've personally found my support system outside of Tony through these in-person events. So again, if you're listening and aren't sure how to start, the best thing you can do, I promise you, is just start going to these in-person events. Like, the connections you make, whether you're learning from someone or just getting that support, is life-changing.
And that's amazing, you know, and you talk about support, and, you know, I talk about support in 2 different ways. And I want to touch on something with you is, you know, I watch you guys, you know, you all up and down my feed, and it's enjoyable. I even show my wife, like, wow, look what these guys are doing. They're super awesome, right? And you're super happy. Like, but there's rough days, right? Everybody got them, right? You know, is there anything that you do that keep you from strangling your husband because, you know, you're having one of those days? And that's important because, you know, truth be told is, if you're going to be locked, you know, there, you're working with each other. You're around one another much more than you were if you was working at separate locations. So is there any pointers, any tips that you could provide and say, hey, when your stress levels, you know, come to this, you know, level, regardless if it's, you know, directly impacted or impacted indirectly, like, what advice can you give someone to do to kind of bring you back in?
Yeah, absolutely. So even if you're not partners with your spouse, like let's say you just have a business partner in your real estate journey, the best piece of advice I can give you guys is to start the business like day one when you decide to partner with this person, is clearly define each other's roles and responsibilities. I think that is how Tony and I stay clear from each other's lanes and don't want to strangle. It is actually very, 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 very rare that Tony and I feel that way. And I think that's because we both know exactly what our roles and responsibilities are in the business, and we completely trust each other to do them. We don't micromanage. We don't ask questions. It's just like, do it. You know, I think I want to strangle Omid more than Tony more often.
Nice. I love it.
I'm that guy. I'm the guy in the middle that they want to strangle me on both sides. So like,
absolutely. Yes. But I think the reason for that, Omid, is because your responsibilities kind of dabble into both what I do and Tony does. Yeah. Both what me and Tony do in the business are so far opposite. You know, you kind of are the middle person that dabble into what Sarah does, what Tony does. So that's why we both want to strangle you. Yeah. But we love you. Sure.
No.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think that is great advice. And another thing is sometimes like if it is your spouse, that's your partner, Tony has a tendency of being such a workaholic. He doesn't turn it off. So, like I have to very regularly tell, like, we're finally chilling and he works till like, you know, from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. We get into bed. I just want to unwind, pillow talk. And he's telling me about the next business plan. And I just look at him. I'm like, can you not talk about real estate right now? You know, so I have to remind him like, hey, I don't want to talk about business right now. Can we just like be sexy a little bit? Like, I don't want to, you know. And then we also, We also do date nights on Sundays. So we try to do a consistent weekly date night where it's literally no business talk. Like it's just us as husband and wife on a regular cadence.
You know,
So like,
and that's fantastic because and I like to call when you're in bed, you know, bumping toes, right? Like we're going to bump toes tonight. You know?
Right. Yeah. And he's over here whispering in my ear about the next property he just closed on. I was like, girl, what?
So cool. Now the date night thing and incorporating that because you know I do something called pop-up lunches with my wife where you know she'll text me or I text her and like, hey, you know, what are you doing? Can you meet for lunch? And we'll find a place to go to. And some places, you know, obviously it's just places you just love to go, and other places, you know, a little more extravagant or whatever the situation is. And it provided so much more value into our relationship. So I really, you know, respect the date nights and how important it is to have that value within your relationship. So that's
yeah,
super,
absolutely.
super awesome.
cool. Yeah, no. So I feel like I lost my train of thought, but I guess when it comes to communication in general, so like let's just say there's where do you what are like some advice you would give as far as like drawing like parameters around like, hey, like maybe this is not the time to talk about this, or hey, I'm ready for sexy time. Like how do you like set those expectations? Maybe for a couple that's just getting started.
I don't know. I think that's a question you guys need to ask yourselves. Every couple is going to be different. Like I said, Tony is just such a workaholic and overachiever. I know for him to be happy, he needs to be constantly driven on, you know, he needs that fire in himself to be the best version of Tony. And I know that about him. So I know, and me, I'm lazier. I am cool if I worked half of the week, honestly. But just because I know him and I'm like, okay, how can I help him reach our goals? So I know I need to keep up on Tony's pace of communication for the business. But at the same time, he knows my love language is physical touch and what's my other one? Physical touch and
Words of affirmation?
No, that's not mine.
No?
Physical touch and
Quality time?
Yes, quality time.
Yeah.
So he knows that about me. So that's another bit of advice actually I love to give couples is know your spouse's love language. So that is just so helpful for Tony to know that I love quality time, which doesn't include real estate lingo. And he knows that. So he's very mindful of when and where to bring up real estate stuff, you know, and I know his interests and goals and aspirations. So I know how much he needs that in his life. So I don't know. I think it's a tricky question because I think it's going to be different for every couple, but I think maybe starting off with knowing each other's goals, aspirations, and love languages. And that might be a good way for you guys to decipher how, like, the parameters to set around communication.
Oh man, I think that's so great advice. And I hope that the listeners rewind that back because understanding the love language and one another is just going to ultimately help for the long run. So Sara, that was super amazing. But let me ask you a question because, you know, as an adult, you know, we sit here and we learn all these things through our journey. So if you can transport yourself, you know, some years back, right? What would you tell your younger self if you can do that?
1,000%, I would tell myself to believe in myself more. I think that's been the biggest hurdle I've had to overcome these last few years. And again, I think it's a lot of pressure from society of, you know, this is what you got to do. This is how you make money. You need a job. You need to retire. You need to stay there the whole time. And then losing that inner confidence that you feel when you're younger. You know, like I mentioned earlier, you ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up, they say something crazy and they wholeheartedly believe they're going to be the tooth fairy when they grow up, you know, and you start to lose that as you get older because A, you compare yourself to everybody else, and B, you feel the pressure of society. And I, looking back now, can see that I always wanted to be my own boss. I can think back to when I was in middle school. You know what I love, guys? I actually really love like content creating. So I love that Tony and I have been able to build this world together, mixing both of our interests and skills. So I'm really good at creating content. I truly enjoy it. Like if I could do that all day, every day, I would be happy doing that. And he's into the real estate. So the fact that we've been able to believe in ourselves, push ourselves, fuel ourselves by mixing both of our skills and interests has just been amazing. And I think looking back a few years ago, I really doubted myself that I could pursue this content creation world that I always aspired for myself, because I was embarrassed. I was like, what are people going to think? I'm shy to post that stuff. Like, what if I fail? I'm going to get judged, So the fact that I've kind of broken that barrier for myself and now have the courage to believe in myself, I think has just been a beautiful journey for myself. So that is probably the one advice I can give to little Sarita, is to believe in myself. I wish I did that longer ago.
No, I think that's amazing. I mean, I feel like there's so many people with self-doubt and they think that they have to follow the traditional way, and you get pressures from family, friends, like you said, the comparison game. And I think that's really challenging. I think that's really hard to overcome for just a typical person. I think the theme for us is really like finding your freedom. So like to you, what does that mean, finding your freedom to you?
Finding my freedom to me means finding my true happiness. I want to be happy in every aspect of my life, in health, in relationships, in money. I just really want to be happy in everything I decide to put my time and energy into. So I think I have done a really good and conscious job of doing that. I would say maybe the last 2 years, I feel like. So it's been a very new journey for me, but I feel like I've just been much more intentional about everything I do. So finding my freedom is just feeling like all those pillars that you have in life that you try to balance and feels like chaos balancing, like that is finding my freedom, is that I am happily putting a checkbox in every single one of those pillars.
Oh, that's great. And Sarah, honestly, I really love the part when you sit there and say, I'm being intentional on what I'm doing. And listeners, if you don't take anything from this, take that, because being intentional of what you are doing is where you're going to take yourself from A to B to C, all the way to Z. All right. Now, Sarah, listen, one of the things that we love to do here is, if anyone knows me, knows that I'm a boom guy. I drop the boom like no one else. So on 3, you got to drop it with us, right? So
okay. Is this the end or what?
Wait. First, how can we connect with you?
Yeah.
You guys can. I'm actually thinking about changing my Instagram name. I've been married for 2 years now, so I think I might change it to Robinson. But for now, it is at Sara, SARAARAAD. And then that's on Instagram. On TikTok, you can find us at The Real Estate Robinsons. Same for YouTube.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Now
so Sarah,
it's time for the boom.
On 3, right? 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do a countdown. You ready? Everybody's ready? All right,
yes.
Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Awesome. Hey, listen here, man. This here at Find Your Freedom, we don't have guests here. Everyone that comes on here is a friend, and that's Sarah. And if you're not following Sarah, and if you're not following the Robinsons, once again, I really don't have a clue on who you are following. But, we would love that you subscribe. We just want to bring more and more and more interviews about people who found their freedom, to you. So you can sit here, just like Sarah said, believe in yourself. So to do that, there's a few things we need. We need you to post this. We need you to comment this. We need you to subscribe and email this to every last friend that you have that is in your Rolodex so they can subscribe. So with that being said, Omid and Sarah, I love the both of you guys. Peace.
Thank Thank you guys so much.
Fantastic.